One of the things that Jung pointed out in this book is that we must pay attention to the research which Dr. J.B. Rhine was doing at that time at Duke University in ESP and psychokinesis, and that even if UFOs had a physical reality, could be photographed or could be weighed and measured, that they still might in some manner be projections of the human mind.
Oh yes, this is an important point to make, which the flying saucer people are forever misunderstanding, and that is, saying that the flying saucer is a psychic object does not mean that it is not a physical object. Jung in Mysterium Conjunctionis is at great pains to say that the realm of the psychic and the realm of the physical meet in a strange kind of never-never land that we have yet to create the intellectual tools to explore. This is where the mystery of synchronicity is going to come to rest, the mystery of all kinds of paranormal activity on the part of human beings, and the mystery of the flying saucer. It's interesting, you see, that if you take the broad world of the so-called mysteries, parapsychological, shamanic, extraterrestrial, so forth, and hypothesize another spatial dimension, one more spatial dimension, then suddenly all these mysteries become trivial. They are easily done. Locked boxes are opened, future events are discerned, lost objects are found. This sort of thing becomes quite the ordinary run of things if we hypothesize dimensions hidden from ordinary experience.
And of course there's serious work at this point in the field of unified field theory and physics to postulate other dimensions of space than we normally think of. So
that's right. The current physical models of the universe require 11 dimensions, 11 integrated variables to describe, and that's physical models of the universe. If we then turn our attention to mind and realize that having no definition of what mind is, why then is there any mystery in the fact that we have no definition of what the UFO is? The mind is present at hand in every conscious moment. It has been our constant companion for 50,000 years, and we haven't a clue as to what it is. So, therefore, a manifestation of the other, the superego, or the extraterrestrial other, like the UFO, is it is not surprising that it is a mystery. I always hark back to the words of J.B.S. Haldane, the great British enzymologist, who said, reality is not only stranger than we suppose, it may be stranger than we can suppose.
Well, that suggests to me that if we look at some of the most bizarre, most anomalous cases that we have, such as UFOs, and we begin to ask ourselves, not so much what are they, because that's a mystery, but what is their function? How are they affecting us? That's like holding up a mirror to ourselves, and it tells us a great deal about the basic mystery of our mind and our reality.
Yes, this is the so-called postmodern approach to ask the question, not what is the UFO, but what is it doing to us? Jacques Vallée pioneered this approach, and the answer is fascinating. What the UFOs are doing to us, to global society, is they are eroding faith in science by casting directly in the path of science a kind of gauntlet, a challenge. Crack this. Almost as though the cosmic giggle had shown up at the bachelor party of science to spoil the bash. In the same way that the resurrection of Christ posed a tremendous problem for the intellectuals of late Roman antiquity, because they had no place in their worldview for someone rising from the dead. They were Greek materialists, atomists, essentially. In that same way, the UFO challenges the assumptions of science. And I think in that way, in that sense, Jung was really on to something when he saw it as coming from the unconscious. It is like an object coming from the unconscious with a compensatory function to turn us away from the rational and toward the intuitive, to turn us away from the paternalistic, Apollonian, solar, masculine view of things, and toward a kind of watery, lunar, mysterious, intuitively felt feminine force, almost as though the UFO is a manifestation of Gaia as mother goddess, science as the proudest, pardon the word, erection of the rational mind, then is challenged by something from an entirely other dimension, an entirely other realm that concretizes for us the culture crisis. And that's why I've gotten into UFOs. I think they are important for a resolution of the culture crisis. They concretize the struggle between the paternalistic masculine and the lunar feminine between a dominator society and the kind of partnership society that we require to survive.
And yet it seems as if that challenge is not a direct confrontation. It's, as Vallée points out, the UFOs are operating almost at the mythological level of our culture. They're not landing in the White House. They're not really challenging the military or NASA.
No, they're very mercurial, very watery. When you reach out toward them, there is nothing there. What they chiefly have become is an intellectual force in human thinking about the future. But when you reach out to grasp the hardware, to read the message, to meet the alien, there is nothing there. I've come to the conclusion, both from talking to contactees and having had a contactee experience, that whatever lies behind the UFO mystery, it is a force which can literally do anything. So it is fruitless to talk about the size of the objects or their composition or color or the size of the entities and their dress and weapons and accoutrements, because it can appear literally any way it wants to. It can appear as the Virgin Mary, it can appear as Galactarian overlords, it can appear as gnomes, elves, sprites, this sort of thing. It is not to be caught in the rational net.
No. Your description is strikingly actually parallel to the, with one exception, to the view of many fundamentalist Christians who say this UFO stuff is all the work of the devil.
Well, I don't know about the work of the devil. Jung's criticism of Christianity was that it had not made a place for what he called the shadow. And he said the productions of Christian culture will always be neurotic because the shadow has not been included, so there's a lack of psychic balance. Perhaps the UFO carries compensatory psychic energy from the realm of the shadow. Some people are very frightened of it. Some people see it as an almost millenarian salvational hope, the savior of mankind. I think that it's very powerful, that it haunts time like a ghost, that the messianic anticipations of fundamentalist Christianity and Islam are in fact a picking up on the shock wave that the image of the flying saucer casts backward through time, that this image of the New Jerusalem, the four-gated city descending from the sky to whisk the elect away to a better place, is a kind of prophecy yearning toward a fact in the act of becoming. You know, Christianity and Islam are the most history-obsessed of all the world's major religions.
Along with Judaism.
Along with Judaism. And all three of them have this notion of the transcendental object at the end of time.
Yes.
And alchemy in the 16th century was an outbreak of an expectation of a transcendental object in the nearby here and now that would
the omega point of history,
yes,
so to
that
speak.
would cure all ills, confer longevity, fertility, virility, immortality. And I think that the flying saucer is an airborne philosopher's stone, the Sophic hydrolith of Paracelsus haunting the skies of modern America with a promise of mandalic cohesion for the future that science has not given us. Science has been a sadly disappointing religion in the realm of the heart. The flying saucer comes from the heart, but it bears the very strange energy of the other in its manifestation as planetary goddess.
Yeah. I'm often struck by the psychic powers that seem to be associated with people who have had intensive encounters with UFOs.
That's right. The thing
And
is
I've researched
both,
many of these cases myself.
It's both material and psychological. It anticipates the future. It seems as the memories of the contactees are transparent to this force. It can reach deep into their lives and confront them with information taken from forgotten incidents in their lives. It is an awesome kind of force that transcends space and time for the individual. Now, it may be that we will never have a general theory of flying saucers. It may be that this is something that addresses the individual in the same way that I don't think we will ever have a general theory of falling in love. That, too, is something which addresses the individual. We have been mistaken to expect Time magazine or the New York Times to explain the flying saucers to us. They will not explain the flying saucers to us any more than they will explain ourselves to us. This is something that haunts the membrane of experience very close in to the experiencing ego, and therefore it is threatening. And this is one of the reasons that I think it relates to the psychedelic experience, because the psychedelic experience is like a UFO encounter on demand.
Yeah.
It's where the will of the person having the experience enters in. They decide to have this curious symmetry-breaking kind of experience. What I have tried to say to the UFO community is that we will not really have a deep understanding of what the contact experience is until we include data from the psychedelic experience as a legitimate data to be included when looking at the problem.
Yeah. Well, you have talked earlier about our need to make an extensive survey of all of the biological manifestations on our planet. It almost seems that in order to really get a handle on UFO phenomenon, we'd need to make a comparable survey of all of the psychological manifestations of which we are aware. And it seems to me that at some level, you would agree with me that the UFO phenomenon is one of our psychological manifestations.
Yes, I agree.
We've got about 2 minutes left, so I wonder if we can sort of summarize your view in that regard.
Yes, I think that the UFO phenomenon is a modern manifestation of a phenomenon which has been with us for thousands of years. That is the partial penetration of our own cultural space by others. Pixies, elves, fairies, sprites, demons, whatever you wish to call them.
Angels.
Angels. In the past, we had a professional class for dealing with these go-betweens. We called the professional class shamans, and they mitigated these comings and goings and had a lore and a mythology about them. As we have lost contact with our shamanic roots, the things which go on at a low frequency out in the wilderness and deserts of this planet have become to seem like us either like invasions from another world or virtual impossibilities. I think that the flying saucer is knocking on our door to remind us of the depth and strangeness and animate intelligence that is resident with us in nature on this planet.
Terence McKenna, it's been a very eloquent presentation, extremely thought-provoking. Thank you very much for being with me.
It's always a pleasure to talk with you.
And thank you very much for being with us.